Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So, in this game, we're going to be facing Runinja once again. Let's get to it. D4, Knight f6, Bishop f4, and e6. So, Runinja's playing the London with control over the e5 square, and I'm here to say, I might play c5, might play b6, and going for a slow setup, but this is normal in a Nimzo Indian looking kind of knight f6, e6. So this is all normal. e3, c5. And what this move says is, okay, if you take, I'm going to take with my bishop. And if you don't take, well, my next move could be b6, bring my bishop out, right? So I'm constantly trying to find ways to bring pieces out. c3, and I decide, okay, let's do knight. So knight c6, knight f3, bringing my bishop out, knight to a3 now. And this is a point at which I pause. Because I looked at c takes d4, and I saw this move knight to b5. And I was like, well, that looks powerful. But I have the move knight to d5, I think. And the thing is, if knight takes on d4, I can take the bishop on f4 if I want, because this bishop is a very powerful bishop. So I kind of didn't worry about knight b5. I said, okay, if knight b5, I'm definitely going to go knight to d5. Or, at this moment, I could play the move knight to h5, right? And already that bishop is somewhat, it can come to e5, but I have d6, so it has to go to g3, and I'll take there. Then I get the bishop pair. And now you might be like, well, why do you have to use so much energy to go get that bishop? Well, the short answer is that the bishop is very powerful compared to this knight, right? You can say that, yes, this knight does control this square, but the bishop does a good job of keeping this diagonal controlled. And for the opponent playing the black side, or for me playing my side, I have to watch out for these things, right? I have to watch out for if the bishop comes to d6 one day. So I have to watch out for those things. And that's why, getting that bishop out of the board is important. So in the game, I played c takes d4. And after e takes d4, I made a very quick decision. I snapped it off. And I don't know if this was the right decision, but I sort of in my head, I said, I like it because once white takes, this is going to look really weak. However, at the same time, white can plant a bishop here, right? So I have to think about whether I'm doing the right thing. So I decide, okay, I'm doing the right thing. I'm going to play d5. I'm just going to prevent the bishop from coming here. And if you come bishop b5, I'm going to cast. Take, I'll take, okay. Knight to e5, and now I make not a very good move. And I made like a 1400 rated move. I played the move bishop d7. And at this moment, I can surely tell you that I wouldn't make such a poor move. But believe it or not, in that moment, in that time, I did. Because I had another game in which I had time pressure and I was just trying to make instant moves here. And I think the thing is here with instinct, I still decided to defend my pawn right here. So I played bishop d7, and after bishop d7, this was a terrible move because if you look at the bishop right now, there is no future for this guy, right? He's stuck. He's stuck in a pond. So I was thinking, okay, I have to improvise. I have to play c5 and then bishop b5 and try to go for this open diagonal again. So in this position, you might have seen the right move from the computer already, but instead of worrying about this pawn so much, bishop a6. And bishop a6, what it does is it says, okay, well, white, you cannot castle anymore. And at the same time, it says, okay, if you take here, I'm going to play queen. Well, there are multiple squares. I could play queen to d7. I could play queen to e8, or I could play queen to b6. Now, the worst thing to do is play queen to c8 because of the move knight to e7. Check, right? So you don't want to play queen to c8. You want to play either d7, b6, e8. I think all these moves are fine. I think what we have to see that's important in this situation is not protecting a pawn or not like continuously holding on to that one pawn, but rather identifying that making white's king stay in the middle of the board and being able to work your pieces around at the same time, that's what's going to be the most powerful. So even I forgot about that in this game. So shame on me. So in the game, I played bishop d7, hated the move. f3, okay, preventing me from going knight to e4. And now I play knight to h5. And I sort of say, earlier, if, well, if bishop e3, I was saying, okay, I'm going to play bishop to e8, and then I'm going to play f6 or something like that. I want to bring this bishop out, right? But at the same time, I also want to bring the knight back to a good place, right? So I'm really stuck on where to place my pieces, and that all really started because I played the move bishop d7. I gave this guy no future. So knight h5 and bishop e3 is the right move here because it centralizes and it controls the c5 square. But after bishop g3, I looked at it and I said, well, I could take this guy. But then I thought about it and I said, well, if I take the bishop there and I look at the activity of these two pieces, well, obviously I would prefer the white knight over the bishop here. So I said, okay, I'm just going to bring my bishop back. I'm going to prepare taking on g3, and then I'm going to play f6 and activate my bishop. And I said that's the best option for me. So then f4 happened, and queen is attacking the knight. So here I played knight f6, and I definitely regretted it to an extent because I remember thinking in my mind, okay, I'm going to play f6. I'm going to follow through with my plan of taking and bishop g6, right? But that didn't happen. I played knight f6 instead because I think this was an instinct move, one of those moves where you see something very much full of opportunity and you just go for it. So that is what it exactly did. Knight f6, and now bishop h4, and all of a sudden I was back in depression mode. I was like, what the heck do I do, right? Because the knight is now pinned, and after queen a5, castles, knight to e4, I'm at this point where I've made a very bold decision. And this was actually because I believe I had time pressure with another game for sure. But in this position, I made a split-second decision. I said, okay, well, if I play queen takes c3, well, there's going to be rook to f3. And the rook is going to come over to g3. The bishop is going to take f6. The queen is coming to g4. I cannot handle the heat, right? So then what happened? I said, well, I can't do that. I could maybe do this, but then at the same time there's take, queen g4, king h8, and the killer move, queen to h4, saying, if you take on e5, I'm going to check, and I'm going to bring my rook up. and lift my rook over. That's going to be a good game. So I was like, I can't do that. So I played knight e4, just instinctively. Few seconds. I said, okay, well, I got to accept the fact that I'm losing a rook. I take to get some pawns back. And at this moment, I could have also played f6, but I remember thinking in the game, I just got to move quick because I've burnt too much time on my clock, so I got to go, go, go. So I took rook f3, really good move, by the way. Queen to a5, bishop to b4, and now bishop takes f8. So I take rook h3, and I play f6, and then king g8, and then queen g4. And at this moment, I remember thinking, well, I only have a few moves here. I only have bishop g6. I only have, I don't know, I was thinking maybe like f5, but what I failed to recognize when I played bishop g6 was the fact that this pawn was hanging. So I didn't see that. Another move that I could have played here was the move queen to b6, targeting this very important d4 pawn, because it gives me the freedom to one day play knight f2 once this knight goes, right? So this diagonal will actually be very important in my winning the game. Bishop g6, queen takes e6, so I completely forgot about this, and when I saw this on the board, I was like, how did I forget it, right? So I played king h8, queen g4, and at this moment, I was like, oh my god, the bishop is hanging because the rook and the queen, right? So I brought my bishop back, and here was f5, and I knew this was my chance. Queen b6, go for the weak pawn, right? Because obviously the queen's not getting there because there's a knight in between. So how do you protect that pawn? The answer is no, you don't protect that pawn. You have to play a move like rook f1, because that way it really protects that f2 square. But in the game, king f1 happened, I took on d4, rook to d1, and now the killer move, knight to d2. Queen says goodbye, and from now on, I was in control, bringing my pieces out, and a very quick checkmate. So, what can I say here? I mean, I guess this trade was somewhat justified, but as we saw, there were certain amount of backlash to it, right? And I have to say, I played the ugliest move I have played in 2 years or 3 years. I played bishop d7. Oh my god, I hated that move now that I'm looking at it. f3, and here I played bishop e8, and knight f6, missing the move bishop h4. That was just so uncharacteristic of me. So I could have played knight takes and f6, or f6 right away, but I just had a few other options that I don't think I considered too much in depth. So I played knight f6, bishop h4, I moved my queen to a5, and I immediately said, I'll take the exchange down. Rook f3, and here, the interesting thing is that, white is in really no rush to attack, to take this rook, right? Like, for example, the engine suggests the move knight to d3 to be the top move. And you might be like, what? And that's because the engine understands the principle that, this rook is not going anywhere, and black might want to play c5 later, so it's important to stop c5. So it's one of those improvements. But other than that, I mean, I got lucky, right? I missed the pawn on e6, but it was all because of this queen takes d4, and then I got opportunities threatening the rook here, so rook d1, a discovery, takes the queen, and everything went according to my plan. So, I mean, it was certainly a rocky road, but what can I say? It was lucky. So, I'll see you later, and I'll see you soon.